Um, you mentioned CJ. You would want to fight him, right? Do
Yeah.
you feel CJ? You feel like he betrayed you the most, right? Because you could find it in him about the stuff, and that's why it bothers you the most, right?
And this is his father's music.
Right.
And this is his project. And he's the one who brought it to the estate. And he's the one that made, because he is the estate. He's the one that got the estate involved. He's the one that brought Diddy in. He's the one who made all this happen. You know, after knowing what I went through, after knowing the trauma that I've been through, he still does that. That's why it's like, you know, him. But, you know, his lawyers will, you know, they'll spaz out and, you know, they'll say all this other shit. But I don't give a fuck, man, because what can his lawyers say? We have a criminal investigation, hopefully, because we filed the reports here for the AOA assisting other agencies report. So the police will be able to ping phones still. The police will be able to investigate the claims. And here's what's bugged out is like, so CJ's lawyer, like I said, he cited some of your interviews. He said that CJ quit the project earlier that year. But it's like, all right, dude, why is CJ doing an interview with Variety talking about our project, talking about me and name in November at the Candy Pins house in Los Angeles? And why is CJ talking to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? It's still on YouTube. I'll send you the interview where he's talking about working on his dad's music with me and everything else. So that's why it's like, I mean, they're dead to rights. There's nothing that he can say. There's no defamation. It's all in the lawsuit, right? And I'm expanding, you know, on the lawsuit to try to people because it's like, oh, he gets nut on his shirt. You know, it's not, no, it's more than that. You know, all the Biggie's clothes were there were because they were being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, but here's what's bugged out is I'm not from LA, right? I'm not from California. I've only visited, I've only worked there and everything else. So today, when I'm going through, you know, when I sent you over some, you know, paperwork, I'm looking at the served where Diddy served. Obviously, he served in jail. I looked where Willie served, and I looked where CJ was served, and his brother Josh Rousseau signed on the thing. So in this police report that I just did, I put that the attack, if you read the lawsuit, it says it happened at a Revolt affiliated house. Because remember, CJ and Willie said that we're doing an interview for Revolt, getting the project back together. So it's this big ass white house with this garage, you know, this white garage with these open windows. So when CJ was doing that interview for us, for Variety, for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, talking about our music, CJ's on FaceTime or a group call with me, Willie, Sarah, one of his publicists. I forgot all the people that were on it. And he's like walking outside the Candy Pins house. And I see the garage and, you know, I see the white room, all these white stuff, and I see the pool. This is all on FaceTime. So when I saw the Candy Pins house, I'm like, that's the house. But I couldn't get an address for it to put in the police report. When I was going through the lawsuit today, looking at the civil, you know, the serving where it was served, I realized I Googled the address that you can look at on CJ Wallace service papers, and that's CJ's house. The attack happened at CJ's house, and it's an all white house with the same garages as the Candy Pins house where he did the interview. It's the same. So CJ took me to his house. That's why all the Biggie shit was up. That's why all the Bad Boy shit was there, and that's where the attack happened with Diddy at CJ Wallace's house. Now here's a bugged out thing. CJ was served in August. Wait, June. He was served in July. A month later, he puts his house up for rent. He had lived there 5 years. A month after he gets served, if you go look at his address, you'll see on Zillow when he purchased the home, it's $15,000 a month for rent. The same white house, the same type of garage as the Candy Pin's house. You'll see that a month after he served on our lawsuit, he moves out of that house, and now it's up for rent. So that's some more, like weird ass conspiracy. Maybe that means nothing, but I don't know how you get served, and then you're moving out of this house a month later. Where the attack happened, and he knows where the attack happened. He was there. So,
has CJ ever spoke on Diddy since this happened? Has he ever came out and said anything about Diddy?
No, he hasn't. So he's like real crafty, right? And he has, but like a few years ago, he did like a VH1 documentary, like about the parents, where it was Diddy's sons and Biggie's sons. They did something together at Valletta Wallace's funeral. King Combs was there. Him and King Combs are like super close. Like when I was in New York, when I was in LA, and we were doing, we had met with the estate and we had met with everybody. We went over to my distributor, which is Fat Beat Records in LA, and King Combs pulls up and he just stays in his car and he's waiting outside of Fat Beats, right? And he at the house that I rented, he came there. Diddy came there. The very first house, Diddy stopped by, and so he's been super close with the kids. They were just at his grandmother's funeral earlier this year. But he hasn't said anything about Diddy. He still follows him on Instagram. They still follow each other.
Right.
Because see, Valletta Wallace hated Diddy. And so there was always this like conflict when we were doing the project because CJ was so close to Diddy and his kids. But Valletta looked at Diddy being partially responsible for her son Biggie being murdered, right? And that's one of the reasons why the estate signed on our project, because we were going to do a positive, house music project and flip his lyrics into positive music, right? So that's why Valletta signed off on our project.
Right. Knowing Diddy now, do you think he had anything to do with Biggie Small's death?
I don't know. Right. I have no idea. We know he probably had something to do with Tupac's death because of Keefe D. I think he created some of that energy, that led to Biggie being killed, right? I think the Quad Studio attack that happened. I think that Tupac said up until he died that they had something to do with it, and they still put out Who Shot Ya, and people are like, oh, it was a different time, you had to press records. Well, even if they got the records back, they didn't have to put out the song called Who Shot Ya when Tupac is in prison being after being shot and after being robbed. That was, why do that? So yeah, he had something to do with the murder, I think, by creating the energy that made people react the way that they did.
And are you scared at all coming out saying all this?
No. And I was more scared when I wasn't, because the people who are served knew what they did to me, right? Because they were there. CJ's lawyer had already reached out to my lawyer. Puffy obviously knows about it. They know who I am. Their lawyers know who I am, right? So I felt more scared because I felt like it was more dangerous because nobody knew. Now that we're going to have more eyes on it, I feel way more safer, coming out and speaking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Being a victim, how have you been able to, cope and manage since this? Because you told me that you wanted to jump off of a building, the drugs and stuff like that. But what have you been able to, how are you still here?
So I have a great therapist, right? Who's been like walking me through everything. And as the case has gotten, more intense, the therapist deals with me, a lot more, about asking questions, um, and, just communicating with her, constantly.